This morning, Dr. Peter Agadah is the official presidential candidate of the Young Progressives Party, YPP. Thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us here, Mr. Agadah, and congratulations to you. Well, let me begin with my very first question, because I'm not sure why some Nigerians were excited that we had a female presidential candidate in the name of Mrs. I hope I can pull that out now, Mrs. Anita Zugwai-Chukwu. So we're happy to see that there's a female in the ring for this battle. Why have you displaced her?
Thank you so much. What an interesting question. And thanks for having me today, Channels Television. Well, Anita Zugwai-Chukwu, a very fantastic lady, astute and qualified in every way to run Nigeria, decided to step down for special family reasons, which I'm not permitted to say on her behalf this morning, but she stepped down. She gave her reasons to the party, and the party accepted. So she's not displaced, technically, but here I am. But interestingly, my candidacy is also backed by another very strong female, astute professional to the core, in the person of Patience Indidikis, my VP candidate, who is adding that dimension, that female dimension, to what we're about to bring forth. So it's all the same. There is no loss to Nigeria. The YPP ticket still has a very strong female presence.
And then maybe my follow-up question would be, you are from the North Central, and there are those who would argue that, you know what, it's the turn of those from the South to complete that four years. But you are from the North Central. Is it that you do not believe that that presidency should be rotational between the North and the South?
Well, I think we've been doing that for as long as I've come to know the Nigerian democracy, from 1999 to date. There is an unwritten gentlemanly agreement between the North and the South. It does 8 years in the North, and then it goes back to the South for another 8 years. And the question I keep asking myself is, what dividend has this kind of democracy delivered to Nigeria? From 99 to date, we've seen Nigeria. I was just looking at information now, looking at data now. We spent close to 250 trillion naira in the development of Nigeria. And as an architect who knows how to x-ray development funding against the development itself, the indexes, the physical development, the human development, and the rest of them, I'm just wondering where this 250 trillion has gone to in the midst of this democratic system and pattern that Nigeria has chosen. It brings me to my conclusion, always, like I've always said, I think it's time Nigeria leaves political patronage and goes for meritocracy. I think it's time for us to look at that framework and begin to let the best of us lead the rest of us at all times. So I believe that just anyone from anywhere who has the capacity, temerity to rule Nigeria should be allowed to rule Nigeria no matter where they come from. Thank you.
You've talked about, you've touched on funding in a very short commentary, and that takes me to what appears to be a graphic illustration of your ideology, or if you like, strategy to, transforming the financial fortunes of Nigeria. And there's something that you articulate here as ward capitalism, where there will be wealth creation in states, direct labor. I see here traditional socialism, equality of outcome. Perhaps I'll leave you to, do an explainer of how your ward capitalism would be executed. But at the heart of this would be financial autonomy to the local government. I hope I'm correct based on what you articulate as ward capitalism.
Very correct.
And I've seen here under this administration that in spite of a Supreme Court interpretation of local government autonomy, it has still not been executed, even despite threats by the president to the subnationals to ensure that local government autonomy becomes a reality. It has taken us nowhere. What will be your strategy to, changing things and ensuring direct transfers to local government to achieve your ward capitalism philosophy?
Thank you so much. Yes, I am driven by an ideology, like you rightly said, it's called ward capitalism. It is a capitalism that is people-driven, bottom-top driven. It's as simple as a team of professionals that I will pick from every state, looking at the line maps of every ward in their state, producing master plans for these wards for its development. The master plan, for example, of my ward, I come from a ward called Odo 2 ward of Obadibo local government in Benue. Odo 2 has the line map. It has a shape map. It has all this existing road network and pathways on them. So I will work with the people of Odo, for example, and they'll tell me precisely what it is they want to get their lives to be better. Their electricity, the transformer system, the water system, their school system, their healthcare system. And the professionals from Odo or from Benue will take this and put it in the master plan of the ward. Don't forget, Nigeria has 8,809 wards. So we're going to have 8,809 master plan, which will come up to the federal government, and then we'll look at the needs of the people based on what the people they've taken up to the federal government. And then we will have a federal allocation. 15% of everything the government holds is taken and distributed to 8,809 wards for cluster development, agro-industrial cluster development, schools development, power development, security development. Of course, it is investor-driven, as usual, but what we will do differently is that while we are some level of capitalism is allowed to drive the process, investors are allowed to drive the process, we'll have to get some social safety net on the health sector, the educational sector, and the job sector. Those three are non-compromisable. For us, healthcare is a right, education is a right, and jobs is a right. But for other parts, we will leave that to the forces of demand and supply so that investors drive the process of development. So we will do one thing differently. We will allocate the funding for every ward directly from the federal account through the CBN. Of course, the National Assembly, the state government will play the oversight role as usual, but allocations will come to the wards directly. That's what we call ward first principle. I don't know if that answers your question.
How would you you're from a relatively small party. How would you navigate the politics that will ensure that subnationals transfer the local government funds to them directly, to their accounts directly?
You know, the interesting thing is that we already have a full designs for each of these 8,800 wards already, okay? We're going into an election. You have leaders in the ward already. You have ward leaders, you have local government leaders. You have people already in these places that our labor direct design already puts them together in a framework that this government is going to gazette. We're going to give an executive order to say that this amount of money every month goes to this ward based on these projects. Okay? That, of course, will be presented to the National Assembly. And, of course, we will do a great job of showing the National Assembly how that works. We'll work with the National Assembly instead of the usual constitution project, or what do they call it, constituency project. Instead of the usual taking the decisions from up here, the decisions just come from down there, okay? With the oversight function of those in the National Assembly, working directly with those down there in the ward. We're going to constitute a new ward team. For example, someone who was a ward coordinator of a party is transformed from ward coordinator immediately after the election to a ward technical coordinator. So he becomes a full functional technical engineering supervisory professional at the ward level. So there will be some tweaks here and there, of course, on the laws of our country that we will convince the National Assembly to back so that this can become the way of operations. Now, we have done a research and we've seen that 15 trillion is budgeted, but somewhere between the state government and the local government, there are leakages that allows almost 70% of the funding allocated to the wards to just fritter away without direct impact on the ward. And that is why we've come out with this solution: ward direct and labor direct. What is labor direct? Labor direct is just the flip of direct labor. I, as a person, I've run a company. It's renowned right now for one of the biggest organizations in the practice of architecture acoustics world over. I just finished projects in Nigeria that I handled materials worth billions. I don't want to mention the kind of billions. And I handled this project with young professionals, young artisans, architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, all within the ages of 20 and 40, 45. And we dealt with this project directly by ourselves. We managed about 700,000 tons of steel, for example, in our last project. And we were successful. We didn't even have to have expatriates help us in achieving this great feat. So we want to scale up this kind of lifestyle where you take direct labor from the local government, just get clean, top-notch professionals to supervise the processes to make sure that even though it is direct labor, you do not allow the outcomes to be uncoordinated, but you coordinate it, you supervise it, you get members of the rural community, you get professionals from the states to be involved. And in this way, you are ramping up production. You're ramping up the economy.
If I'm becoming, my apologies, so that we can manage time. Two questions, but I'll take one at a time. Let's talk about what we're dealing with currently. The debate around subsidy. We would like your views, because the argument with the Bola Tinubu administration, President Bola Tinubu administration, is the fact that there is a clear macro-micro disconnect. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has said he's going to come and bridge that gap with targeted production subsidy. That has generated a lot of salvo. Peter Obi, for instance, is saying he's not going to take away subsidy, but what he will do is he will better manage it. Better management of proceeds have always failed with government. It's inefficient, it's ineffective. Where both are correct, they are inadequate. So there's social safety net as we speak, there's NEL fund and all of this thing, but people are still suffering. A lot of Nigerians, over half of Nigerian population is in poverty. In fact, has driven more Nigerians into poverty, whether it's income poverty or multidimensional poverty, which has to do with non-income poverty. So what's your position with subsidy and this gap that is being, that's generated this argument?
I believe that the present administration's macroeconomics is fantastic and is superb. What I think is wrong, I just said it now when I was describing the word capitalism, is the leakages. Because a good friend of mine, one of the presidential aspirants, said today that the biggest beneficiaries of this administration's reforms, economic reforms, are the governors, and I understand that. And I hear too clearly, and I read that this administration has put over 5 times what governors used to get in terms of the FAC allocation monthly in their hands. So what happens when it goes to the hands of these governors is the big challenge, because I think, because I live somewhere, I come from a local government. My local government has not seen 1 centimeter of roads done in the last 10 years. I go home literally all the time. I pass through the same road, I go through the same difficulty, there's no road, there's no light. In fact, my community comes to me these days, oh, this is our growing son, can you help us with transformer? Can you come and help us with renovation of schools? And I wonder what all these allocations that go to the local governments in paper are doing. So there is a major problem between the state government and the local government. That is where the challenge is. So what I'll do, is that I'll channel the funds directly. It's a direct labor initiative now we're talking about. So let me come to subsidy. We will not remove subsidy. We will toe the path of the current administration, but we will change, somebody calls it management. I will change mine because we are project driven to production subsidy. One example of it, for example, is in the clusters we are about to create per local government. If you see our master plan, our master planning are cluster based. A local government could have 2-3 clusters, one handling agriculture, the other handling housing, and the rest of them. Now we will subsidize solar power, for example, in the clusters. We will subsidize industrial processes, for example, with subsidy. That's what we'll do. We'll take the savings from subsidy and support production activities, energy activities, what will help the masses to be able to produce and be better
Mr. Agadah,
for the future.
My apologies to you, sir. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. CNG was a proposal, 3,000 CNG buses with, I think, 100 billion earmarked for it. It's not working. So if you don't mind, I'd like you to speak directly to how, whether or not in your subsidy of PMS itself, whether you're going to subsidize crude so that the knock-on effect can come to PMS, or you just leave the market to play out and use the same, because that's why I said most of the time when they direct these savings, it's either inefficient, inadequate. If they pass these two checklists, they are significantly insufficient. And I gave you the data of the level of poverty, the level of cost of living. So it's there. So not an hypothetical situation. I don't know whether you understand me, sir.
I understand you loud and clear. And I like the position that says the crude belongs to Nigeria, okay? I always like to use the allegory of Nigeria as my home. I use my home to describe the country, for example, okay? I earn the salaries, I make the monies, and then I have the children. I have my kids to look after, okay? I call my kids now representing Nigeria. Now, the management of my resources to be able to make sure everyone in the family is okay is my responsibility. So it's the responsibility of government to know that what is ours, what has been given to us naturally that belongs to Nigeria, should be and can be managed properly. We should not allow the forces of demand and supply to liberalize our crude 100%. So you're right by saying that I will subsidize the crude as is given to the producer, those who use the crude. We have a Dangote refinery, for example. Now, we will determine in a framework how this crude and the product of this crude comes back to Nigerians in such a way that it is cushioning the effect of production in our nation. Precisely what we're going to do. In fact, in the Labor Direct, we are cushioning 1, solar power, 2, industrial processes that makes us go from a subsistent farming economy to a producing farming economy. We're looking at what goes on in that process, in that production process, and we're finding ways that government can cushion, in the production process. Of course, you've mentioned PMS. Of course, you've mentioned diesel and other things that may be needed. We will also look at some dimension, some international partnership dimension that brings processing and production processes itself a little lower so that the economy of the people who are managing this thing can be better alleviated. I think that's as simple as what it is that we're going to do with subsidy. We agree that we should not return 100% to subsidy. We will not do that. That will be taking the nation, that will be taking back the hands of the clock. It's a fantastic economic policy and principle. This administration has already, the framework to go forward with the economy is fantastic. It is the management of the process. It is the monitoring and evaluation of the outcomes of the process that is the issue, which we've already planned out with our Labor Direct and our World First policy.
Well, maybe let's touch on one more issue before we let you go, and that has to do with insecurity. Benue State, where you come from, we hear about 3 million Nigerians are in IDP camps. All right, I was just saying that perhaps if you heard me, that we have to touch on one more issue before we let you go. The issues around insecurity. In Benue State, where you come from, for instance, we hear about 3 million Nigerians are in IDP camps as a result of insecurity. This morning, we woke up to the news of mass abduction in Niger State. The Nigerian Tribune reports that about 43 persons were killed in 5 communities, and hundreds of others have been kidnapped. In Borno State, that's the same story. In Plateau State, that's the same story. Taraba and all of that. How do you intend to solve this problem?
Thank you so much for that question, and that is the area that I like to beat my chest and speak about. Sometime between 2015 and 2016, I led a team of professionals to engage the Nigerian Armed Forces and Nigerian intelligentsia. And what we were doing was to profile a solution to them in how to combat insecurity and insurgency in Nigeria. Earlier than that, I had, as a part of 30 top-notch Nigerian professionals who presented something to government on technology and innovation, actually been recognized with this same solution that was taken to the Nigerian Armed Forces. What did we do? We designed a master plan for the management of Nigeria's border security, Nigeria's superhighways, the main express road, 55,000 kilometers then, the grazing routes, they were still available at that time. They were not taken over as it is right now. We designed a command and control center in 6 of the Nigeria geopolitical zone. We recommended the armed forces to have a rapid response squad in each of these geopolitical zones. We worked in a partnership within our team, the Turkish Armed Forces Foundation, the US Department of Defense, and we came up with this very fantastic concept. And I personally, as part of that project, worked onto the Frequency Management Council of Nigeria and pressed until a special frequency was granted to the Nigerian Armed Forces. Before then, the Armed Forces had their communications using the normal frequencies, MTN, Glo, and Airtel, which was very weak, which was not strong, and which was not military. We were able to get them the 450 megahertz frequency. We were able to get them another key frequency that belongs to the armed forces so that their communication will be seamless. And then we were to put them together, the military together and the intelligentsia together in a network for watching all Nigeria's 923,000 square kilometers and about 6,000 plus kilometers of border, and governing every square inch of the country, where every movement, as you cross the border, as you move on the highway, as you carry sensitive materials, even when you make calls and you make some volatile statement, these people will pick you up wherever you are and they will deal with you. So you see, we did not implement that. You cannot move forward with a nation that is governed blind. It cannot work. Nigeria needs a intelligentsia, just like you have the US version called Pentagon. We need one in Nigeria called Nexagon, which we had designed with all the necessary frequencies, equipment, layout, and everything. And we need the armed forces to work together in that platform and not in silos. The Air Force functioning in silo, Army in silo, police in silo. No, they need a unified point where all of them working together with command and control centers in sensitive part of our country, with our borderline geo-reference and geo-fence, with all our highways planted with sensors that picks devices that are illegally moving. If you don't do this, you're governing blind, and anybody can come in the wake of the night like it's happening right now. People are sleeping in Otukpo, Nobi, and they are woken up by gunshots and killing. It should not happen that way. If you have a system like I'm talking about, which of course was presented, approved. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg came to Nigeria in 2016, and he looked at this technology that me and my team presented and was shaking his head that this is what your country needs to move forward. And I still stand by it, that if we get into office, we're going to bring back that order and we're going to implement it. We're going to get back all the frequencies that belong to the Nigerian Armed Forces back to them. Because I heard that after the submission was done, approved, agreement signed, when the new government came, most of those frequencies were withdrawn. I'm not sure about that, but if that is what happened, the military and intelligentsia frequencies should return to them so that they can sit in a location, okay, and seamlessly govern 923,000 square kilometers of Nigeria without losing any sleep. And that is the order being practiced all over the world where security is taken seriously. This is exactly what I'm going to do when I get into office as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yeah, I like the sound of that, when you get into office. And I must say, on paper, it sounds really fantastic, your blueprints for Nigeria. But we cannot engage you more because we're absolutely pressed for time. Dr. Peter Agadah is the presidential candidate of the YPP, that's the Young Progressives Party. We wish you and your team all the best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me today, and I'm available to come and do more details on this if you want. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we are here. You can also buy airtime and tell Nigerians about that.